let you know if she is. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari. Now, sorry, I don't get any comms this afternoon. For some reason, my comms are not seeming to be working somewhat, so we were just taking it very easy. We were listening to some music and taking it very chilled. But my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo, who is back from leave. Hello, Senzo, how was your leave?
Good, man.
Good. Senzo is delighting us today with the most incredible set of socks that you have ever seen. So if you have a look, Senzo, put your feet forward, come on. You've got to show us your socks, because Senzo is all color today. He's in time for spring. Come on, Senzo, put your 2 pairs of socks forward. You can't not show us. No, you're going to have to pull the camera down a little bit, and then let's show Senzo's colorful pairs of socks. Look at that. Is that not a way to brighten up everyone's day? There are some beautiful pairs of socks in time for spring. So welcome back, Senzo. Nice to have you back. But it is live, it is interactive, which means you can do hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat should you want to get hold of us. But why we stopped here in the middle of this open, beautiful clearing that is quarantine is because on my left-hand side we've got some of our more rare birds that we get in this area, which are the ground hornbills, and they're going about feeding, and they seem to be fairly relaxed this afternoon, actually. Normally they kind of scuttle away from us as we try and come up towards them, but this afternoon they seem to be fairly chilled. They're just walking slowly through the grass and pecking away as they go. Now I can only see 3 of them, which is not the normal grouping. We normally have a group of 6, but there is these 3, and maybe it's just a splinter group, and the other 3 are feeding off somewhere where I can't see them at the moment. But it's a beautiful scene to watch these big prehistoric looking birds walking through the golden white grass of winter, and they peck away with those black feathers and bright red faces. It really does contrast heavily against the lightness of the grass, so it's a wonderful sight to behold. And like I say, they're very prehistoric looking birds. Those big beaks and the way that they move just kind of reminds me a little bit of dinosaurs. I don't know why, it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But let me go a little bit closer, because they are moving off slowly, and I want to try and just keep up with them, because when they're in foraging mode like this, it's great to try and stay with them for a little bit, because they pick up the most wonderful things on their foraging expeditions. They'll find sometimes snakes, chameleons, scorpions, insects, all a myriad of different insects and animals, and they all shove them in. So sometimes you can get some really cool kills if you're just patient and you follow them for a little bit. They seem to not be finding too much in the way of big things. It mostly looks like small insects that they're grabbing. Remember, this morning we did a bushwalk and I didn't see too much sign of insect movement, so what they are finding must be relatively small, maybe a few ants, maybe some termites here and there, and the odd beetle or 2 that might be cruising around. And I feel sorry for whoever's in their path. They have a massive eye that is able to pick up all kinds of different things, and they're able to see and look, and as soon as that eye locks onto something, they're in there and they're grabbing it. So it is quite amazing how quick and agile they are at being able to find things or spot things and then get in there and feed off them. So it's really cool to see. But you can see how they're just waddling away from us slowly. They're birds that will never walk towards us in this particular area. If you go into the Kruger Park, these guys are actually somewhat of a nuisance, because people have fed them and they've learned to get food from people, and so they'll come running towards the cars and actually pick at the cars, and they can be a bit of a handful that side. But here that doesn't happen, and so they're a little bit more wary, and that's why they'll just ghost through the grass, slowly kind of angling away from us. But they're not too shy, these guys. Much better than some of the other ground hornbills that we see in the area. Now, I was actually talking to a ground hornbill researcher when I was on leave recently. He's busy. Oh, what's that one on the left got? That one on the left had something in its beak. I didn't see exactly what it was, but it looked quite big. It's busy, got its head down feeding. Let's see if maybe it's going to toss its head up and we'll be able to see what it is. No. And obviously went down before we could see. But it looked like something big hanging out of the beak. Now, Megan, I can copy you now. Yes, thank you. Sorry, my earpiece, I've got the makeshift earpiece, so I've got the older one, and it's unfortunately loses comms every now and then, so I can hear you loud and clear now, though, Megan, which is fantastic news. And so I believe you all are welcoming Senzo back and saying that you love his socks. Well, it was the first thing that I saw today. I was very joyful to see Senzo's socks. They bring a bit of happiness into our life and certainly a bit of vibrance. So Senzo, your socks are now famous, and I love that you're wearing 2 different kinds of socks. That certainly adds to the edginess of your appearance today. So really good to see Senzo, and it's always good to have him back. He brings a little bit of life into the camp, and he's a very funny individual. So he seems as though he's always quiet, but he's actually quite an entertaining character. and he's got lots of funny little sort of comments that he makes at various times. So it's always nice to have Senzo back in camp and around again. There you go, you can see he's digging around, and you'll find that they'll also go through dung quite effectively to get insects. Just now I was on the subject of ground hornbills, and I was talking to the researcher, and it was a very interesting conversation because I've never really spoken to somebody that spends as much time with ground hornbills as that guy does. He was telling me now that in the next few months, and from October, when the ground hornbills are going to be nesting and they're going to have chicks, well, in fact, they're starting to nest already now, but the chicks will start to hatch, that he will be up every morning before the sun rises, and he'll cover a massive distance of the Kruger to try and inspect each individual nest. And with ground hornbills, what you find is that they will lay 2 to 3 eggs, and normally there will only be one that will survive. So what they're doing is, because the ground hornbills are in such dire straits at the moment and their numbers are declining heavily, they are busy with the thing where they're taking the 2 of the 3 eggs, so the weaker individuals, and they are actually incubating them and then re-releasing them later once they've been grown up. So it's a really interesting project that they're trying to do to try and get the numbers going and trying to sort of restart the system. The problem that they're saying that they have is that there's a number of birds that are being poisoned by crop pesticides, and there's also loss of habitat through habitation of certain areas that these guys like to use for nesting sites. They like big trees with holes in them that they nest, and then also because of the lack of favorable nest sites, they're now using secondary nest sites that aren't great, and so a lot of predation that is happening on them. So that you're finding a lot of civets, genets, leopard, birds of prey that are getting to the chicks, and so this is why they're busy doing it. And I was asking him how many breeding pairs does he reckon that there are in South Africa, and he reckons that at the moment there's about 300 breeding pairs. So that's within this sort of system that we're in, and it's crazy to think that that's not very many birds at all. And if there's only one chick from that is actually starts to be raised, and most of those chicks are not going to actually survive. So if you, let's say, 50% don't survive, it's only 150 birds that is added to the population a year, which is really not very many at all if you consider that there will be birds that will have natural mortalities from all kinds of different predators. Now, Marisha, you say you love their calls. They do have a cool call. I like it. So it's male and female has a slightly different call. It's not like some of the other birds out here where male and females have the same call. Here, these male and females are slightly different in that you'll find the male will basically call second to the female. The female starts the call with "honey, come to bed," and then the male says "no, not yet." And it doesn't quite sound like my voice at all, but I will play it for you now so that you can hear what I'm talking about. And just give me 2 seconds to find it on the app quickly. Ground hornbill, there we are. Okay. Alright, so the first part, that's the honey come to bed, and that's the no, not yet. Alright, so that's how they call. It's a very, very cool sound, and we hear it often early morning, late afternoon, this hollow sound that just echoes over the area that is Djuma, and it really is a great sound to hear. Unfortunately, they are disappearing, so I'm not going to follow them any further. They've been very obliging and given us a wonderful view of them, so I'm going to carry on and see what else I can find. Hoping that my comms are still working, because I haven't really heard from Megan for a few minutes, which is not really normal. So if it's not working well, Senzo, you'll just have to tell me if she speaks to me, and hopefully I will hear what's going on. Like I say, we're on to the reserve earpieces now, and this one's got a slight issue. There we go. Hello, Megan. So Megan's still there. So I do apologize, guys, if I sometimes am live and I don't know it or anything like that. Hopefully we'll try and fix it. I'm going to fiddle around a little bit just now when I'm not on air. But for the afternoon, in terms of plans and what we're going to be trying to achieve this afternoon, well, I don't think anybody checked the southern side of Djuma today, so I'm going to try and head down towards Treehouse, Twin Dams, Mulawati, look for any signs of Tamba, Hosana, Shongile, Tandi, those 4. Shongile just because we haven't seen her for so long, Tandi because, well, we saw her yesterday, she had a bit of a limp and was hunting, maybe she was successful, and then the 2 boys because we know they had a little altercation 2 nights ago, and I really want to just see if both of them are okay and if both of them managed to get out of it unscathed. So that's the situation why I want to head into those areas, and then if there's nothing there, maybe towards Chitwa Dam to see if there's any elephants out that side, because I believe this weather there should be some ellies and it would be great to get some elephants. But let's quickly jump back to Brent, who I believe has got a spotted cat of his own.
Well, it took a bit of searching, but on a beautiful hot day like this, we were pretty sure right up here on the eastern side of the Rhino Ridge, where there's not much shade, not much cover, if we checked enough little croton thickets, we would find two of my most favorite cats in the Masai Mara. And it is, of course, Amani's daughters. The last time I saw them, they were having a horrible morning being chased about by lions in the last of the Migration series TV shows. But I'm very happy to say, look at them. Oh, they're looking very, very happy. Not too fat. So I know where I'm going to be for the foreseeable future. And that's right here next to these two gorgeous cheetah. And I'm hoping as it cools down and gets towards one of my favorite words to say, at least, the crepuscular hour, these two are going to go on the hunt. There are quite a lot of wildebeest around. There's some Thompson's gazelle, there's some impala higher up the ridge, so there's lots of prospects about for these gorgeous girls, and I'm very happy to be here. Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you've got any questions for us. And rolling around, having a good old time. They might even get going a little bit earlier. You never know. That's the joy of being on a live African safari. They are hungry by the looks of things. Their bellies aren't too fat, so there could be something that gets them moving a little earlier. Oh, isn't that sweet? A bit of grooming. Now, female cheetah will stay together for a while after they leave their mom, but as they become sexually mature, they will split away from each other and start looking for home ranges of their own. But for the moment, we are very, very lucky and very spoilt to be able to enjoy two of the girls together. Now, their mom, I've seen quite a bit, and their mom is normally around Sala's camp, so who knows, maybe Taylor might find her on her wanderings. She's down to the south of us. So a very exciting afternoon planned. Who knows what's going to happen? And I know you've heard me drone on, but I was so excited to find the cheetah. My name is Brent Smith. I have Batman on camera, and we are in the Masai Mara live with two cheetah. So we're in the National Reserve on the eastern bank of the Mara River in an area called Rhino Ridge. So it's quite rocky, as you can see around here, but fortunately the wildebeest have done a fantastic job grazing all the grass. So we're going to have nice, long and big vistas, and hopefully we're going to be able to follow them on the hunt. Remember, this is coming to you 100% live from the Masai Mara, and as I said, hashtag Safari Live for any questions. It would be great to hear from you. Now, you will hear some other vehicles driving around, and they've also spotted the cheetah, so they are coming to join us. And it looks like we're having a little bit of comms issues again. There we go. I think it is my earpiece that is playing up a bit. So, Alice, can you talk to me? There we go, I've got Alice back. I think I'm going to need some more tape to hold my earpiece in place. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Hi, Tony. Tony says they think it's smart that if these two female cheetahs stayed together and formed a female cheetah coalition. Now, we know male cheetah do that, female do not. So the most important thing for them is to get their genetics out and to breed with the males. So they would be in a direct competition with each other if they stayed together. So with males, there are more benefits in staying in a larger coalition and staying together in terms of defending a larger territory, having access to more females. With females, it isn't as beneficial. So you can see how hungry they are, and I said they might get moving a little bit early. So isn't this absolutely spectacular? And I said I've got quite a soft spot for these two girls. I've spent quite a lot of time with them, and then also, as I said, I've watched them narrowly avoid lions, and that wasn't too long ago. So I'm very happy to see them well, or a little bit, even though a little bit hungry, but well and still together. And as I said, we must just take advantage of while they're together for as long as possible, because they will be splitting to search off for their own home ranges, and they can move vast distances. They already are probably... Okay, let's just have a quick look this side for me here quickly. So, if we have a look in the distance, over there you can see that's Lookout Hill over there, but if we keep going off to the left from there, Craig, and we will see, and keep coming, you'll see a little dark sort of double hill in the distance. Now that's very close to Sala's, and that's where their mom is, Amani, the female cheetah. So she is, and I'll show you how far away it is, a little bit to the right. Here we go. So from that range of hills and into that very distant mountain you can see in the background into Tanzania, that's where their mom ranges. So they're already quite a hefty distance away from their natal home range where they were born. Okay, so we're going to sit tight with these cheetah, because as I said, they're skinny. I'm pretty certain they're going to hunt, so we're not going to move a muscle. But while we sit here, let's jump across to the other side of the Mara, who's with Jamie, who's got something with stripes rather than spots.
I had something with stripes. In fact, I had many things with stripes rather than spots. There they are. Well done, Manu. He has managed to find us the two remaining members of the business of banded mongoose, which are one of my absolute favorite little creatures, and they move through the Mara as though one sort of collective, almost like a school of fish at times, moving through the grass. There's one bouncing along. I've no idea where the rest of them went. There must have been at least 20 when we last looked. Ooh, ominous rumblings of thunder. But we'd best do a quick introduction, but I don't want to miss out on a moment of the mongoose, but I think that's pretty much them gone. A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Manu is on camera with me. And we're heading out again a little bit later, but that's because the car has received its final, or semi-final draft in terms of the rain covers, which I think we're going to need this afternoon. So without any further ado, we're going to head off, go and see if we can find the sausage tree pride, I think, this afternoon. And then, if we can't find them, I don't know. We'll see where the day takes us. Jared, you'd like to know how we know where we can off-road. It's actually relatively clear. So most of the non-off-roading divisions are made very clear by main roads. Up ahead is a main road that comes from Olololo Gate. Anywhere on the other side of that main road, we cannot off-road. Up until the point that we get to the first river road that runs to Serena via the Mara River. Anything on the Mara River side of that river road, we can't off-road. Anything on the other side, we can. Pretty much end of story. We can off-road here, not there, and then not along, essentially along the river. It's actually relatively easy. The boundaries are quite clear. The trick, of course, is also to remember that there's certain times where even if we technically could off-road, we shouldn't. So we absolutely shouldn't off-road in a marsh, say, when it's just rained. In fact, we shouldn't really off-road in a marsh full stop, unless it's very, very dry. And that's not just because we're going to run the risk of getting stuck, it's because it's damaging to the environment. And that, of course, is a rule that applies not just here in Kenya, but also across in South Africa. Let's go across to Tristan, who's paying a visit to one of the waterholes.
I am around the waterholes. I've just finished checking Treehouse Dam. Nothing really happening there, not even many birds actually, to be honest. It was a blacksmith lapwing, I'll get it out eventually, and that was there, but other than that, very little sign of any movement of animals. There was the odd hyena track around, but otherwise all quite quiet around Treehouse. And so what I'm going to try and do is head slowly now towards Twin Dams, and then maybe up the Mulawati before I head towards Chitwa if there's nothing happening in that area. So that's the kind of plan so far. I really do want to catch up with some elephants at some point, and I believe that James, you were asking about the gymnogene nest at Chitwa, so maybe we can do two with one stone. What about elephants at the gymnogene nest at Chitwa going towards the dam, and then we spend the afternoon with them swimming? How about that? I think that's a good way to do things, and one that we really should try and focus on at some point, because they would love to spend some time with them swimming ellies. It's been so long since I've seen swimming ellies, so I would really like to have a little look at them. But we are going to slowly meander our way along to Twin Dams first, because Twin Dams seems to have been the hotspot of Djuma over the last little bit. We've had how many sightings of leopard in that area recently? It's just been quite crazy. That little section north of Twin Dams in the Milwaukee, and Twin Dams itself has really been a great place for us. And those that are wondering about the carcass that I was talking about yesterday, that was just north of Chitwa in Torchwood but was visible from the road, which we said we think was Kuchava. Apparently she unfortunately dropped the carcass this morning. Hyenas have taken it, and she's then was found going into Chitwa, and then from Chitwa into Cheetah Plains with a male, which I can only imagine is either Tingana or Quarantine. That would be down in Cheetah Plains side, so it's apparently very close to the Chitwa boundary, but they're still on that side, so not on the Chitwa side. So I'll keep an ear out for them too, because it would be quite nice to catch up with Kuchava. And if Quarantine's around, well, I have yet to see him, and I would love to go and see that boy, so I would rush into that area if he is around, because it would be, like I say, the way to complete all of the offspring from Karula's lineage. So I would have been able to see Safari, Karula, and then all of her offspring if we see Quarantine. So we'll hopefully at one day sometime in the future be able to see him. I've seen his brother Kunyuma twice, but never have seen Quarantine himself, so I'm really hoping that one day I'll get it right. I don't even know how many times I've tried to look for that cat. I've been to Cheetah Plains in Koro when I was still at Simambili and looked, and I've responded to sightings, and every time I've tried to get close, he's ended up going into a different area and away from where I am. So I really do hope that we will be able to catch up with him one day. He looks like an incredible animal. He's a beautiful, beautiful leopard, and still youngish. He's going to still fill out a little bit, but he looks impressive at best. So I really would like to see him at some stage. And for some reason in my mind he looks a lot more like Mvula than he does Tingana, whereas Kunyuma maybe a little bit the other way. But I wonder if Mvula didn't just have something to do with that litter, because we know that they can have multiple or fathers within a litter, so you can find 3 different males that will mate with a female, and different cubs will have a different father. So it's very possible that both the cubs could have different males. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mvula was somehow involved there. The similarities are just absolutely astonishing between the two of them. You would say I'm talking like I've seen this leopard. I've just looked at a lot of photos of him, so that's why I was saying that. OD Farming, you're wondering why it's called Quarantine. Well, it's because when he grew up, him and Kunyuma, they both spent a lot of time around Quarantine open area, and so that's where they've gotten their name from. Just quickly checking Janet Jackson's home. Janet Jackson's still away at the beach apparently, still enjoying her cocktails at the coast by the looks of things, because she's not at home today, or he's not at home. But it's always worth just having a little quick look when we're on our way here. So they spent a lot of time around the Quarantine open area, and so that's why he ended up getting the name. And then that's, as far as I understand it, I mean I could be completely wrong, but that's the story that I've heard from others. Like I say, it was a little bit before. In fact, Quarantine and Kunyuma were in a period when I wasn't up in the Sabi Sands. I was actually overseas for a few months, and then came back, and I came back just as they were starting to leave Karula, and so I don't really know too much about their childhood and how they grew up. I just know of them, and I know that Brent absolutely loved Kunyuma. It was his favorite because Kunyuma had quite a bit of attitude, and that Quarantine was liked a lot by Scott as well. I remember Scott going and looking for them fairly regularly, so I don't really know too much more about them. Don't have many stories about them. The only story I've got is that I had a sighting with Kunyuma when Mvula was just starting to get pushed heavily by Tingana, and Quarantine actually chased Mvula off a kill as well, if you can believe it. Even though he was way younger, he was just a lot more aggressive, and poor Mvula, I think, just thought, well, I'm not getting involved in this, and left it alone and carried on. So it's the only real kind of interesting story I've got about the two of them. Now we're slowly but surely rolling our way down the hill towards Twin Dams, just little kind of meander along as we enjoy the afternoon sunshine. And somebody else that is enjoying the afternoon, I'm sure, immensely, given that he is sitting with the fastest land animal, that is Brentley O'Smith.
Well, the ladies are starting to get quite playful. Look at that, biting on the ear. And there's a bit of cloud cover that's coming in, and hopefully today the rain will stay away from us, and we'll be able to follow them through. And I think they're going to get moving maybe a little bit earlier than I first suspected. Every time I see them stand up, you can see how concave their belly is, how hungry they are. And what's so amazing is this incredibly strong bond that they have from cubs eventually sort of dissipates, and they move off to sort of find their own path. But you can see now the bond is still very strong between these two. The aloe grooming we're witnessing now, we would almost say it was a mother and a cub, not two sisters. But that isn't uncommon with cheetah, and the reason we don't see it too often is that normally what happens is cheetah have such a high mortality rate that out of a litter it's unlikely that two of the same sex will sort of make it out, but we're very lucky in this case that they have, and we're getting to witness this incredible behavior. Hey girls.
Sharon, how old are they? Sharon?
Hi, Sharon. Sharon's wondering how old they are exactly. I'm not sure, but they're probably just over 1.5 years old at the moment now. Maybe a bit closer to 2 years. I'll have to check up on my notes to find out the exact age, but probably between 1.5 years and 2 years old at the moment. Oh, and they're being very playful. That's the one thing you've got to love about cats, and especially young cats. Everything's a toy. Each other, a little leaf, a piece of grass, a stick. All good for swatting on and chewing on.
Question, Deadhead. If they came across their mother, would the mother chase them off? Deadhead?
Hi, Deadhead. Deadhead's wondering if they came across their mother, would the mother chase them off? Now, it's very difficult to say for sure, and especially with these interactions, they never happen exactly the same way each time. And to try put a sort of finite rule on what happens with wild animals is one way to get into trouble. I'd say there's a possibility she wouldn't be too friendly to them. She would more than likely try hiss and chase them off, but I have seen the opposite, where a mother will actually welcome the cubs, or the sub-adults now, but yes, normally she would try chase them off, but sometimes she might be feeling slightly magnanimous and happily give them a quick grooming before chasing them off.
Question, Graham. Is the cheetah population increasing in Mara? Graham?
Hi, Graham. Graham's wondering whether the cheetah population of the Mara is increasing. Now, that's a difficult one to ascertain. Now, we have been chatting to the Mara Cheetah Project, and they have given us lots of information. I would say it's probably maintaining at the moment. So one of the biggest threats to cheetah is lions, and the Mara has an incredible lion population. So you find in the conservancies and towards the peripheries of the National Reserve, away from the areas of high lion densities, you will find bigger cheetah densities, but I would hesitate to give you an exact figure just yet. As I say, I have to do a little bit more research, and before I can tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's maintaining. It's a very healthy population. It is one of the healthiest meta-populations in Africa. Now, when I refer to a meta-population, I mean a population that has got a lot of genetic diversity, and with cheetah that's very important. So a meta-population has lots of individuals that, oh, look at them! Aren't they having fun? Have different genetic markers, and that is very important for a survival of a species. Now, cheetah are under threat not only from habitat loss and competition with humans. They reached a genetic bottleneck about 10,000 years ago, where there were less than 100 or 200 cheetah left. So there's very, very little cheetah genetics or strong genetics left in cheetah. And as sad it is, they're probably one of the animals that is going to go extinct naturally in the next 10,000 years. You can take a skin graft from a cheetah in Namibia and happily graft it onto a cheetah here in Kenya. That is how limited their genetic range is. So it is very, very interesting to note, and it's one of the more fascinating things about cheetah. I hope I'm wrong, but generally with evolution, that's how it goes. So the fact that they and no one's really sure, it could have been disease, it could have been a heatening or drying of Africa during that period. But a cheetah also used to occur all the way through sub-Saharan Africa and through the Iran and all the way into India. They've been extinct in India for about 500 or 600 years already. There was a report there could have been one about 100, 200 years ago, but highly, highly unlikely. And there are still some surviving in Iran. And even those cheetah, the genetics are so similar to this beautiful girl who's sitting right next to me. So it is a fascinating thing. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they develop some better genetics and they develop some stronger genes that are able to fight off disease. Now, that is one of the biggest threats in a population of animals that does not have a lot of genetic diversity, is that there isn't any of those individuals that are carrying a sort of immunity to certain diseases. And what happens now is that one animal gets the disease, and you can see how affectionate they can be, and especially with mating and fighting, a disease can pass quite quickly through a big cat and then throughout the population. Like wild dogs, it's one of the biggest things that threatens them.
So, do cheetahs sometimes fight for food and territory? Langston?
Hi, Langston. Langston's wondering, do cheetahs sometimes fight for food and territory? Indeed they do. Male cheetah fights can actually be quite spectacular, and I was lucky enough to see one of the first ever filmed in northern Botswana, and it went on for 7.5 hours, and it was quite brutal. It was two different coalitions of two males, and it was such a ball of fur and snarling and hissing that sometimes they ended up hitting the wrong cheetah. But yes, there is competition between the individuals, and even these two girls might have the odd scrap over a Thompson's gazelle. She's got a little bit of a sore back left leg by the looks of the way she's walking. Now, that is not uncommon, and especially a lot of the little injuries, sort of little bumps and bruises. Once they start moving, start walking, you'll notice them start walking a bit better. Oh, she's chasing her. What did she get? Oh, she went after a little testicular. It looked like a testicular. She disturbed out of the tree, the second female, and luckily for her, she didn't catch it, but I don't think it would have been much of a snack at all. Now you can see how hungry she is. Look how empty her belly is. Now, we're going to keep up with these girls. I need to find my way through the rocks here while they get moving. So while I do that, let's go to Tristan with something that I think even the cheetahs wouldn't want to eat.
Well, I don't know, Benty. The smell of it, I don't think anything would want to eat it. It is disgusting, the scent that is coming from here. But it is a dead tortoise, and this is exactly where I left Tundi last night. So I don't know if she found this tortoise and crunched down on it and killed it, or if maybe it was Tumba and she found it later and kind of dragged it around. But this is the exact spot that I left her. In fact, I can even see her tracks walking up towards this tortoise. Whether or not she killed it here, I'm not 100% sure. Tortoises generally aren't out in the night, but you can see there's just little paw prints around where that is. So she might have just come to investigate it if it was already dead. And we know Tumba has already killed tortoises before, so maybe he got hold of this the day before and she's just come and testing it out, because it stinks like I can't even tell you. It is horrific, the smell that's coming off this thing, which would not mean that it died today. This is at least 2 days that it's been dead. It really is incredibly pungent. It's not very pleasant at all. But that is a leopard tortoise, unfortunately, that's on its back, and it would have been one of the first of the season that's unfortunately died. Now you can see the beautiful pattern that gives it its name, leopard tortoise, those little black rosettes with the creamish shell, and then you can see all the scoots on top and lots of little bite marks on the actual shell itself, so little chips out of the shell and a few little scratches here and there where whatever it was that went after this crunched down on it. But definitely Tundi had a little sniff around here to have a look at what was going on. But interestingly enough, in front of me down the riverbed over there are 2 ground hornbills, and they're feeding off something. I don't know what it is yet, but they're going crazy. They're busy pecking away. You can see there it is, and they really are hammering something in the ground there. So I don't know what it is, and I'm scared to go too far forward and that we chase them off. So what I'm going to try and do is just pull a little bit more to the left and hope that they stay where they are and we can get a better view of whatever it is that they're feeding off, because they're really going to town on whatever it is. They're pulling and they're grabbing. So let's just try and see. Hopefully they won't get too much of a fright as I pull to the side here. And it'll be nice just to get away from that tortoise, because that tortoise really smells. Monique in London, you asking, could the smell attract hyenas? For sure, it most definitely could attract hyenas. What has it got there? It looks like it's got maybe a bird. What is that? I don't know what that is that it's busy feeding off, but look, it's quite big. You can see where it's pecking, and look how it's stabbing. Isn't this phenomenal? So it's not every day that we get to see ground hornbills, and now we've got the sighting of it feeding on something large. It looks like a big bird that it's eating. I wonder what you found. And it's a female ground hornbill that we've got, and a bit of meat on her beak that she's cleaning, and we know she's female because look, she's got a bit of purple underneath the throat. What are you feeding on? That is interesting. I have no idea what it is. It looks bird-like, doesn't it? It looks like it's got feathers. Am I correct in saying that? It's got a bit of glare on my monitor, so I'm trying to see, but it does look bird-like. But look how it's stabbing at it to open it up to get what it needs. This is phenomenal. It just shows you the size of prey that ground hornbills will go after. Now, you may think that this tortoise was killed by a ground hornbill, and maybe that's what they kind of killed first, but Tundi's tracks are there with that tortoise, and you can see her tracks all around it, which means that that tortoise must have been there already last night. And we know ground hornbills are not active at night, so they didn't kill the tortoise. Now, Liza, you think that, well, you're asking whether a ground hornbill would eat tortoise. Well, yes, it's their number one predator, basically. They will turn tortoises over and pull their legs and head off, and then try and get that long beak into that carapace and get all of the meat out of it. So hornbills are a very big predator of tortoises, but that tortoise has been dead long before these ground hornbills were here. The smell from that cannot be from these guys foraging today. But I want to know what they've got. It's big and it's bird. That's all I know at this stage. And I'm really quite intrigued as to know exactly what they're feeding off. The problem is I don't want to get too much closer because I don't really want to chase this hornbill away in case it does move it for us. But it is phenomenal to watch the way that they feed and how they use that big beak. You would think that a bird like this would struggle to get a carcass, but look at the force that it uses, almost like a pick. It's incredible. That is absolutely phenomenal. And you can be sure that there's no the leopard. This bird would have been chased away by now, but that is absolutely crazy. Look at the force. It really is hammering that carcass. That's craziness. OD farming, you say this is a murder scene that's going on between the bird and the tortoise. Well, yes, it feels like I'm in a graveyard at the moment. It's quite a macabre scene that we've got between all of these guys, and the hornbill's going crazy and going to town on this bird and the stinky tortoise behind us. It really is quite sort of macabre to be in the middle of all of this. I wonder, like I say, if maybe this wasn't caught by the leopards as well, and these ground hornbills are now scavenging off it. I suppose it's possible. I wonder if it will let us get any closer so we can see what that actually is. I'm so intrigued because look how deep it's pecking. It almost looks like it's the wing section is up towards us. Yaz, you're asking if we could predict the time of death by the insects that are present on a carcass. Well, I would imagine you could. So the stages of the fly larvae, let's say like maggots that would be on that tortoise, or eggs that you see, could indicate the age of that carcass. We haven't examined it enough, and I don't have gloves on me to go and play around with a rotting, smelly tortoise. Also, I didn't want to disturb these hornbills. So we could definitely, if we saw eggs for flies or found maggots or something like that, that would indicate. But I reckon it's when Tumba was here. So remember, we found Tumba coming from this area before we had his little altercation with Hosanna 2 nights ago, and I think it's from then, just from the smell of it. Like I say, yesterday, I mean, if it was killed yesterday, we would have definitely had seen it here with Tundi, so I'm not sure, but it's moving off now. Let's just go try and sneak forward, Senzo, and see. Maybe we get lucky and we can get a little bit closer and sneak into the sighting. The problem is on sand is we don't really sneak anywhere on sand because of how much the kind of cars dig in, and it's not easy to turn. And also we know Wendy, as you can hear, is not the quietest of cars. But let's see. I'm hoping this ground hornbill is not too skittish and it will let us get a little closer, although it's already moved off a little bit. The ground hornbill is not interested in us at all. It looks like it almost could be another ground hornbill, you know that. It's weird. It's black, jet black feathers, although ground hornbills will have white tips to their feathers. Oh, come on, Wendy. Come on, turn. But it is. Look, they've killed another ground hornbill. This is crazy. Whether they killed it or they've just decided to sit and cannibalize it, but that's ridiculous. I've never seen this before, but it is definitely another ground hornbill. Look at that. You can see the white trailing edge I was referring to, the red of the head there, and those big feet. It is most certainly another ground hornbill that they've killed and fed on. That is absolutely insane. I have no idea why they would kill another one, and if this territorial fights got this crazy, but it is certainly been killed or fed on by these ground hornbills, and I didn't know that they cannibalize each other, which is, to me, an absolutely insane thing to see. That is absolutely ridiculous. You can see lots of flies around, and I'm just trying to see around if there was lots of sort of movement. Maybe, you never know, maybe Tundi grabbed this sometime during last night if they were roosting somewhere in these trees and she fed on it a bit and then left it and the ground hornbills have scavenged. I don't know. It's going to be very difficult because their tracks will be all over that section now, and I'm going to battle to see if there was any leopard tracks there. But there is definitely a ground hornbill, that's for sure. That is phenomenal. I have never in my life thought that these guys would cannibalize each other. That is really quite ridiculous, actually. Now, I want to try and go forward. The rest of the flock, and it's more than just one ground hornbill. I can see at least 4 or 5 that have moved off. But you can see the damage that they can do. I mean, they've literally picked right through that body, and that's not the sign of a leopard eating a bird. And a leopard wouldn't leave a carcass like that. So for those of you that are a bit squeamish, maybe now's the time to turn away. But a leopard wouldn't eat like that. You can see how they've actually picked their head away, and they've picked down the chest and into that cavity, and they've kind of eaten all the way around the feathers. And that's an adult bird. It's not a young bird. It's got a red face already. So why they've killed it, I have absolutely no clue. That is crazy, 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 crazy. Wow. Who knew that they would be this violent? If they did kill it, I mean, that must have been the most insane fight to have watched, these guys going after it. But there you can see the big feet. And claws. So, Monique in London, yes, I will report it to the guys that are studying the ground hornbills, just in case they want to come and have a little look and see, and maybe if they want to try and determine a cause of death, in case there's something other than these hornbills killing it. So we will just let them know. Also, they maybe will be able to ID it from the other side of the head, because they do have photographs of all of the hornbills and they kind of know who is who. So maybe they'll be able to ID who this bird is and be able to work it out. But I mean, it is completely mangled at this stage. It's really been picked, and you can see why that ground hornbill was really hitting hard. You probably find it's trying to get between the bones to get to those sort of areas and be able to feed off it. But this is just the most insane thing. I honestly would never have expected them to cannibalize one another, even if they were in a territorial dispute. And on top of that, I mean, that is a huge bird to kill. It's not an easy prey animal to go after, and so for them to have killed one is just absolutely ridiculous. I am a bit lost for words, and it just shows you never know what's around any corner or what can happen to any of these animals. So we started out with ground hornbills on quarantine, and I said a few were missing. Maybe the rest have been in this territorial dispute with another flock, and this is what has resulted from it. I'll have to do some reading up and see why this would happen and whether or not it's been documented, ground hornbills cannibalizing one another. Or maybe some of you at home know, and you can say hashtag on Safari Live if you do have any information about whether they do cannibalize one another, and if there are recorded sightings of them feeding as well as actually killing each other. But this is just crazy. Never in my life would I thought we would have come across a ground hornbill being eaten by ground hornbills. Wow. Must have been a very, very horrible death either way, which is quite something, because you can imagine being hit by that beak. It's not going to be a pleasant experience. And you saw the force that other beak of that other bird when it was trying to eat this. It must have been really hectic to have been here and to have seen this. So I'm quite glad we didn't see that, because I have seen birds killing one another before, and it is not a very pleasant situation. And I'm not talking about birds of prey. I'm talking about normal birds having territorial disputes and killing one another, and it is really a horrible thing to watch. So I'm glad that we didn't see that. And I know this is quite gory, but it is in some ways absolutely amazing to have seen. Honestly, if you had told me that this is what had happened, I wouldn't have believed. But the thing is, we've got documented footage now. So if there is no footage of them cannibalizing themselves, or cannibalizing one another, we've just managed to get that, which is really quite something. So I'm really going to try and investigate a little bit further and speak to the people that I know in order to try and find out a little bit more. But the flock has moved off. I was wondering if they might just sit close by and watch us for a while, but I think they've decided they've eaten enough and off they go. The fact that there was only one bird feeding, and I saw at least 3 in front of it, so it looked like there was 4 of them in total. And so if they've decided no, they're not interested in this food source, then I'm pretty sure they're going to move off. Now, Jamie in the Mara, she reckons I should take this back for James's tent. Jamie, I think maybe I'll send you a photo of what it looks like, and then we can discuss whether or not James would want this in his tent, because I highly doubt he would. It is absolutely mangled. There is not very much left. There's a few feathers and some feet, but that's about it. But I might just take it anyway, just for in case the researchers want it and want to just do some testing on it and not leave it here in case something else comes and picks it up, because we know hyenas would probably scavenge this. But we'll have a little look. I'll try quickly get hold of them and see if we can. But now I believe we're going to go back to the fastest predator, and hopefully they also get a meal, but not one of their own.
I'm sad to hear that Tristan found a dead ground hornbill, but I do hope that he decides to take it back with him to the tent so that we could closely examine it, or at least he can closely examine it. We've encountered something slightly larger and definitely not nearly as feathered as the ground hornbill. Massive bull, not massive, youngish bull elephant who's been enjoying some fresh green grass. It has been springing up after the amount of rain that we've had. In the last few days, it's just been a constant downpour in the afternoons. It's fantastic news for the animals of the Mara. Lots and lots of food available for them. Nice and cool temperatures. Elephants love the rain. Something that large that spends a lot of its time cooling down enjoying the rain, playing in the mud. It's the perfect kind of weather for them. And at the moment, he does not look like he has a care in the world. Ah, take care. What an appropriate question as we have a look at this elephant's tusks. So take care is wondering about... Oh, okay, we'll have a look at his tusks in a second. Take care is wondering about left and right dominance within animals. And elephants are one of the things where you can actually see it quite clearly. So if we have a look now at his tusks, have a look at the left and the right tusks. So elephants have what's known or termed in textbooks a slave and a master tusk. In other words, one that is used regularly and one that is essentially not used as often. And in this one, it's quite hard to tell. I would say that this elephant is probably left-handed or left-tusked. Most elephants do favor one tusk over the other. However, it's not always as clear as that. So sometimes they tend to be sort of almost ambidextrous, whereas in a lot of elephants they do actually demonstrate left and right tusked behavior. And what you'll often find on the tusk is a groove mark. And I'm looking at his and I can't see it. I haven't seen it as much on the Mara elephants, to be completely honest, but then their diet is more grass-based than the elephants in the sand. But maybe if Tristan finds some elephants, he can show you the groove on the one tusk of an elephant that they use to break branches. It's something that you don't see often on the Mara elephants at all, come to think of it. In fact, I don't think I've seen any with that groove. There's an observation that I've only just realized now. So thank you for that particular question, because it's actually pointed a fact out to me that I hadn't realized until right now. The rest of the animals, yes, I think that you'd probably find that animals would have a dominant paw that they would favor when they swipe, for example. And if you watch lionesses, if they're angry, or male lions, if they're angry, they often lead the strike with one foot, either the right or the left, with a repeated series of swats. But it's in elephants that you can really gauge exactly which side that dominance lies on. Tamora, yes, it is true that elephants like to bully other animals sometimes. I suppose bullying is the wrong term to use because they're animals, and then bullying sort of implies a nasty intent. But yes, they do bully other animals, particularly around water holes. They'll often chase the other animals away. They won't let them come and drink. They will, what's the word? What is wrong with me at the moment? I can't think. Hog, but not the word hog. Something along those lines. They will dominate a water hole. I guess that's not quite what I was looking for. Sometimes they chase things just because, especially the young male elephants, for no reason at all. They'll go tearing after antelope and chase them round and round and round in circles. Or birds. They often chase predators, but that's slightly different. They don't like the smell. But yes, they do. Now, I didn't do it. I don't find the baby elephants here as cheeky as the ones in the Sabi sands. They don't come up as often to the vehicle. In fact, to be 100% honest, I know Brent's had a few encounters with them. I don't think I've had one baby elephant here come up to the vehicle. And it's one of those things, I mean, if we look across, we've actually got a few babies far away at the moment, and perhaps it's just a distance thing. Perhaps it's because a lot of our elephant sightings have been at quite a distance. But I haven't seen the babies come up to us all that often. I actually find it quite sad in a way that hasn't occurred. I'm sure it would. I'm sure it's just a matter of circumstance more than anything. How's that little one? Looks so tiny from a distance. I'm excited to get a really nice elephant sighting in the Mara when the baby comes up and says hello. The Mara provides us with all kinds of amazing opportunities, one of which is to spend time with those two gorgeous cheetah sisters.
Spend time with gorgeous cheetah
And you can see the sun's popped out. The light is spectacular. And isn't this absolutely glorious? And they're heading out on the hunt nice and early, and we will be with them the whole way through. They are absolutely magical, these two girls. You can see the dark sky in the distance, but I think we are in luck for once today with the weather. Seems the rain's blowing the other way. Now they are heading towards a herd of about 10 or 15,000 wildebeest. Quite a few youngsters there. I chatted to someone a bit earlier. Apparently they did try catch a wildebeest this morning and failed. So that's why they're so hungry. So maybe they'll have a little bit more success this evening. And the one thing we have learnt and we have noticed is that cheetahs will hunt after dark in that crepuscular hour. Now, Janet is wondering what diseases are they vulnerable to. Janet, rabies is one, distemper is another, so quite a few different diseases. And of course, I think the biggest problem is a disease that no one knows of yet. Could be a big problem, and that's one of the reasons why, if you do have stray domestic cats and dogs in any of these wildlife areas, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but they will be destroyed on sight, because those are vectors for diseases, and those diseases can very quickly and very easily jump into a wild population of big cats or dogs. So it's very important to try maintain some control over the domestic animals around, and diseases are funny things. They mutate to try jump from species, obviously to make life a little bit easier for themselves. So there are quite a few vehicles around, so you will see other people enjoying these cheetah, but don't worry, I'll make sure we're always in the best spot. Oh, and we've just had a change of body language. Look at that. Look at her body language, how it's changed. Her ears have gone flat. What can you see, gorgeous girl, in the distance there? I can't see anything just yet. There are wildebeest, but they are incredibly long way off. Ah, impala. Okay, there are impala on top of the little crest over there. They're still a long way away. I need to get myself into a better position. Let's go. Hold on, guys. Could be a bit bumpy through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get ourselves ahead of where they're going to end at the impala. We're not going to wait here and behind them. I'm just hoping that this little lugger is crossable. You're holding on, Craig. Hi, Riti's wondering how far can a cheetah leap? Oh, water, mud. Hold on! Hold on. So, no, we're just getting into the right spot. Okay, so Riti, cheetah don't really leap, but we'll get onto the question. I need to concentrate here because there are some very muddy spots. Hold on, like that one. Okay, I should be through the seep. As you can see, the water's actually flowing out of the ground here. This is the same area that big storm that kept us wrapped up for 3 hours yesterday came through. So the groundwater here is incredibly high at the moment. There's also some sub-adult topi here. So it was amazing how we saw that immediate change of behavior. Okay, we're in the spot. Riti, cheetah can leap quite far, but they don't really use the leap too much. They prefer to run flat and fast. And even in rocky areas like this, they're still incredibly good at getting the top speed. The impala are completely oblivious. They are still quite far. This cheetah's probably going to want to be within as close as possible, probably 30 meters or so, but they will have a go sometimes from about 60 or 70 meters. So from where they are now, I think they're going to dip into that little low area where we've just come from. So where we had to do a bit of speeding to get through the mud. Now, the reason for that is it's going to offer them some cover as they sneak towards the impala. I'm just worried we might be a little bit low here. Let's just watch the girls for a little bit, and then I will move a bit higher. I didn't do it is wondering, do they flatten their ears when they see prey? Yes, indeed they do. It's to break their outline so that, although I have the impala spotted them yet. Not yet, but Alice, I think we should get ready to possibly pop onto Facebook as well for this sighting. Welcome everyone to the Masai Mara in Kenya. We are with two cheetah sisters who are using this little drainage system to stalk up towards some unsuspecting impala and juvenile topi. The impala are about 70-80 meters away, and as you know, cheetah are the fastest animal on earth. Okay, you can see she's starting to jog. I'm going to try get a little bit higher. They've disappeared behind a little rocky ridge. My name's Brent. I've got Craig on camera, and we're with live hunting cheetah in the Mara. So often we don't want to be behind the cheetah where they are. We want to be where they're going to be, and what they're trying to catch is right here next to us. So we've lost sight of the cheetah. Oh, hold on, there's some rocks here. Now I'm going to show you now, there's some bushes that I think they're going to try utilize to get closer to their unsuspecting prey. Let's see, we might be able to see a bit better from around here. Okay, so the cheetah are just down there. There's a little sort of island of thick trees to the right of that impala, and if I was a cheetah, I would stalk from behind there. So those impala are unsuspecting at the moment, and you would have seen a topi in the foreground as well. Now we're in the best spot possible. So, oh, there we go, here she comes, here she comes. There we go, absolute pandemonium here. She's going right round us. She's still after the impala. No, she's seen a baby topi. She might have changed her mind. No. Oh dear, that was so close. Now, that's what I was talking about, being in the right place. You want to be where the animals are going to come out, not behind them. And luckily for this very hungry female cheetah, she didn't get it lucky, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to keep trying in this beautiful golden light here, live from Kenya. Remember, this was 100% live. Oh dear. There's a bit of a despondent sit down. And Karen says her favorite cat. Well, Karen, one of my favorite cats too. And these particular two females are two of my absolute favorites. I've spent a lot of time with them. I've even seen them being chased by lions. So I'm really rooting for them to hopefully get a meal. And I'm going to be sticking with them for the whole of this afternoon into this evening. I'm definitely not going to leave their side, and I'm hoping they'll get lucky. But for all of you who joined us live on Facebook, remember, keep an eye on the notifications. I'm going to be with these cheetah for the next 7 hours, 8 hours. They are going to hunt again, and I'd love you to join me live to watch the hunt.
incredible cheetah hunt, and we're back with our ground hornbills, but listen to the audio that we're getting from them. So they are calling incessantly, non-stop. This is the group that was feeding off that other hornbill, and I think they're the same ones that are related to the ones up on quarantine, and maybe that's why they're calling, is to reunite with everybody. But it is amazing. I'm going to try and sneak a little closer. They're a bit shy. They're kind of not as relaxed as the ones we had earlier. They keep running from me a little bit, so I'm trying to keep a long distance. You can see they're quite far in the distance at the moment, and I got hold of the guys, well, I got hold of the ecologist of the Sabi Sands and just spoke to him briefly about whether or not they wanted the carcass. He said there's not really much they can do, but he'll get back to me, and so if we need to come get it, we'll just come and get it a little bit later, because it's quite a big bird and it would be quite a macabre thing to have on the vehicle for the rest of the drive. But it is certainly, when we spoke to him, he says to me it's the first time he's ever heard of it where they've cannibalized each other, which is absolutely insane. I had a quick look over the carcass. I even played around just to try and touch it and see if it's still warm, and the body is still warm, so it was killed this afternoon sometime, fairly recently. But I'm going to stop here so we can hear them again, because their sound is so ghostly. I love their call. Why are they running now? So you can see when she calls, look at her tail. The tail does a little dance when she calls. How cool is this, guys? This is the most prolonged period of calling I've had in a long time. So they're still going. I'm going to try and keep following them a little bit, because this is the most magical thing and the most ridiculous sighting we could have ever asked for. I mean, it must have been something when those birds were fighting with one another and really going at it to try and actually kill that bird, because I looked, they basically picked it from behind. So they didn't actually go after it from the front. They went at the back here and they picked all over its back, and you can see where they hit the spine, and then they went for the head area, and that's where they really did a lot of damage, is when they got to the head. So it really is quite an incredible way that they killed us. Now I am holding a feather over here, which I'll get into shortly. Once I can get a little bit closer to them and just turn off and we can listen to them calling, hopefully they're going to come across a road shortly, because they are heading towards Chelapan and Pangolin Track. So I'm going to quickly just stop at Pangolin Track and hope that they kind of come in this direction as well. It seems as though they've turned a little bit and moved, but there's one actually that's flying. I was hoping they were going to stop right here near the road and we would have been able to see them. Maybe they're just a bit kind of freaked out by the whole thing, and they're a little bit sort of concerned about the fact that they've just killed another one and a bit hyped up, and that's why they're not staying still. So I'm just going to stop here and I'll talk about the feather until I can actually see them. But a lot of you were asking if that bird was ringed or tagged, and so this is the feather that you were talking about. I just brought it with just so that we could see it, and I can show you that this is not actually a ring. Alright, so while it looks like a ring, that was how I found the feather. It's got this little ring over here, which is just an extension of this keratin sheath that is over the tip of the feather, and this is a brand new tail feather that is starting to grow out. So the bird was not very old. I had a really proper look at it. The red around the face is a little orangey red, so it's just coming out of its sub-adult phase and into a more fledged adult. So it's not quite an adult just yet, and this is just from when they were fighting. That piece over there was over here and it was ripped by the beaks, and you can see it's been pulled up. There is bits of blood on it, unfortunately, and that's why it's like that. So it's not actually a ring on it at all. It's just an extension of this, basically much like a cuticle of a nail that we have off this feather that's now coming down onto the feather itself. So there is absolutely no no indication of ringing. I checked the feet very nicely. Generally, when you have a ringing situation, the feet will have bright colored tags on them, and they actually tag on the feet, not on the feathers, because they lose feathers regularly, and so it won't be a tag ever on the feather system, unless it's something like a vulture where they put a tag on their back. But generally with birds, they'll put over their feet, and they have a metal ring that goes over it, so it's not a ringed individual. I've sent the photos to the guys to try and see if they can ID and to try and see if there is a difference between them, and now that we've got a bit of footage of these guys, I'll send them a bit of this footage so they can check if it's the same flock. But like I say, the ecologist that I spoke to, who's been in the Sabi Sands just as long as I have, he says the first time he's heard of this and first time that he's ever heard of them actually feeding on it, which is really quite something. So like I say, it's the first for me, and really an incredible situation to witness, and one that we all, as much as it's macabre and gross, are very fortunate to see. This is the thing about what we do here at Safari Live, and the fact that we spend a lot of time with animals every day, is that we get to see things that are just so ridiculous. And isn't it amazing that you're witnessing something that potentially is not known or has never been seen before? Is really quite something. So let's see how it goes, and maybe we'll get a bit more research over the next couple of days, and we'll maybe figure this out a little bit more. But I checked, as for Jamie's idea of having it in the tent, there's no ways. It is completely mangled. When I tried to kind of pick it up, there are bits falling off it, and it's just going to be an absolute mess. So I did take a nice big feather for James, so he can have a feather now that he's got the leopard face feather from Tara. I did take a nice big tail feather from the ground hornbill just for his tent, so that he has those as well. So that's going to be our ground hornbills. They've now drifted very far into the grass areas, and unfortunately I'm not going to follow them anymore. They seem a little bit nervous. They've stopped calling now. So we really had the most ridiculous afternoon with ground hornbills. Who would have thought when we went out this afternoon that was what we were going to see? It really is amazing, and as we often say, you just never know what you're going to see out here and never know what is around. It really is an amazing thing, and I kind of in some ways wish I had seen the kind of interaction take place, because it would have been fascinating just to see how they went about it, if it was a gang attack or if it was just one bird that went after another one, or how this all played out. Either way, they are brutal, and when I went and looked at that carcass and see how they fed off it, it is absolutely phenomenal. They pretty much picked that carcass clean. It might not look like it was picked clean, but they've gone all between the ribs. They checked out the chest. They've eaten through the throat. There's very little meat actually left on there. There's mostly just skin and bone, and bones and feathers. There's very little actual meat left on it, and that's probably why they abandoned it. But how amazing was that? So I'm going to get rid of this feather. I'm going to just leave it here because it can just biodegrade and go back, and I'm now going to continue on my original mission and start heading towards Chitwa. There's no more signs of Tundi that I could see in the Mulawati itself, so I'm going to go towards Chitwa. I'm going to just go and have a little time at the dam. Hopefully there's some ellies around that side or anything else, and then once I'm done there, I'm going to come back and maybe Tundi's around, particularly with that ground hornbill there. Might be worth just going to check that ground hornbill just as the sun's setting in case a hyena arrives. You never know, maybe a leopard. Next thing we have a leopard picking up a ground hornbill and walking off with it. It's just never know, and it's an incredible carcass, so we'll go and have a little look and check what happens to it. So that's the idea anyway. That is certainly not what I expected today, that's for sure. Elizabeth, you're asking what the life expectancy is of a ground hornbill. Well, unfortunately at the moment their life expectancies are lower than what they should be because of how sort of threatened they are. But generally these birds in the Sabi Sands area are only living to about 12 years old, so that's a very old bird. Sometimes even less than that, closer to 10. So in captivity I'm not 100% sure. I'd imagine they'd be able to go to about 15, maybe even 20, but here in the Sabi Sands, from the data that they've taken, most of the birds are only living to about 10 to 12 years of age. Now I just quickly got an update that the Nkahuma Pride is just on Buffelshoek Hook at the moment, so they're moving around there with one of the Birminghams by the sounds of things. And there's also Djuma on a kill as well. He's got a big warthog kill, but as always, being elusive at best, they haven't really seen too many signs of him. He's just the big warthog killer and his tracks all over the place, and obviously he ran off when the guys went and tracked that drag mark. So must be for Djuma that side. And that's it. There's nobody else on Djuma, so nobody's even come down this area. I still need to get an update on the pangolin tracks, because I know the guys dropped their trackers off there during the day, and I wonder if they maybe tracked it towards a termite mound. And for those of you that missed it this morning on Bushwalk, we came across a pangolin track, and so we tried to see if we can find that pangolin, and we sent the guys Taxon and Aubrey's tracker, and they went and followed for a while, but I don't know if they came right or if they found any sign of it, but it'll be interesting if they did. I'll try and get hold of them now. I've just been so intrigued by this ground hornbill that I haven't really concentrated on the kind of other things that I wanted to do this afternoon. So we'll get back into kind of where I was and focus a little bit better on what's been happening. But that was just ridiculous. I'm still at a bit of a loss for words for what actually went on there. That's not something I would have ever expected to see, and I wonder if Brent has ever had any experience of it, or Jamie, or any of them have ever heard of something like this. I would be really keen to know, and maybe with Brent, who's sitting with his cheetah, if they're relaxing a little bit, we can ask him and see if maybe he's ever had an experience with the hornbills like that.
Too fast for them, but I'm pretty sure once they've had a little bit of a recovery period, they are going to head out hunting again. There are a lot of wildebeest not too far away, and Thompson's gazelle. Speaking of some gazelles, look on the crest in front of us there, Craig. So I said lots of wildebeest, lots of gazelles around. And there we go. So just across the valley from where we are. And after she failed to catch the impala, she actually walked back towards us, right onto this termite mound, a mere 4 or 5 meters away from us, and plonked down.
Have you ever had a ground hornbill experience? Tristan?
Now, I've got a question from Tristan, and I'm assuming, is it to Tristan and at Djuma? Oh, so I just said Tristan's found a ground hornbill killed by another ground hornbill, and asking if I've ever come across anything similar. I haven't actually. I found the remnants of a ground hornbill that's been killed by leopard a few times, and I've seen was a martial eagle sort of harass a ground hornbill, but I've never actually seen another one that's been killed. That's fascinating. That is absolutely incredible. A bit sad as well, because they are such endangered birds, but nature has to take course, and they do have quite a high mortality rate in that sort of first 8 years of their life. Now I think, did you spot the Thompson's gazelles galloping on the far hill? Oh, I think you did. That looked like a little ear perk up. That looks tasty. Oh, we've got one for the birders. While we're sitting with the cheetah, where did it go? Can you hear that, Craig? A flappet lark? Oh, is he too high? He's going to come down. No, he's gone too high now. But you can just hear in the distance this, and that's the wing snapping of a flappet lark. He's actually above us now. I'll keep an eye, see if he comes down. But that's a territorial display to let all the other male flappet larks know he's the boss. Oh, look at that light on these cheetah. Absolutely gorgeous. I must say, I do have a soft spot for these two girls. I'd say, yes, I've definitely spent more time with these two girls than the other cheetah in the Mara, or maybe I've spent quite a lot of time with Kenya, but that was a long time ago. And I've also spent quite a bit of time with their mum. That is too beautiful. James is wondering if I know if there's been any sightings of Omani. I don't, James. I haven't been down south for a while. I haven't heard anything, but I'm sure she's probably still around Salas and the Ashnell Main Road. She tends to like that area. It is quite a hilly area, so she can disappear. She also does go into Tanzania quite frequently, so she might be visiting down south in Tanzania. But I'm sure she's A-OK. Now, Robin's wondering who names all of the cats and why. Robin, the cats most of the time are named by the researchers who spend their time with them, and it's just probably a little bit nicer. Certain researchers I know don't name any cats. They will call, for example, some of the researchers I've done some work with, for example, with lions, we could use the same thing for cheetah. It'll be CH for cheetah, and then MR, Mara Reserve, or MC, Mara Conservancies, and then 001, 002, 003. Oh, sorry, I forgot. So it'd be MR, well, CH, MR, F for female, and then 001, 002, 003, 004. And then obviously the F changes to an M for males. So it probably just, it's easier to keep track of them if you've got a name rather than a CHMR F001. Sorry guys, I thought I just saw something on the opposite ridge there. No, false alarm. Anita is wondering when will they start breeding. It depends, Anita, so it's going to take them a while still, probably only when they're about 2.5, 3 years old. Sometimes it can be a bit younger, sometimes a little bit older, and it also depends on availability of males, and they're probably in good spot here. The five boys do wander here. Now, unfortunately, I heard the five boys have gone to Naibosho Conservancy, so they're not in the reserve at the moment. They're in one of the conservancies, but I'm sure they'll be back. Oh dear, did that run take it out of you, madam? Now, for me, of all the big cats, I know there's going to be some of you out there who might disagree. Cheetah definitely seem to pull off the most elegant, sort of elegant poses, the most elegant lie downs, using the termite mounds. Lions sort of just flop and just disappear into the grass. Leopards can be elegant, but I don't think there's anything quite as elegant as a cheetah, and in the poses they choose, and a lot of it's to do, obviously, because they often have their heads up, unlike lions and leopards. And the reason for that is to see if any lions or leopards or hyenas are closing in on them, being right down, sort of the smallest member of the big cats out here in Africa, and often harassed by all lions, leopards, and hyenas. Kristen's wondering, do female cheetah sequester a section of their territory like female leopards do? They do not, Kristen, no. Cheetah don't have as stricter territories as lions and leopards. They have much sort of home ranges, and they're much, much bigger. And there's a couple of different reasons for this. Oh, I know what she's looking at now. Look at that massive herd of impala over there. She's spotted them right on top of that ridge there. There is an absolutely massive herd of impala. Sorry, just I got sidetracked. I saw her gazing off into the distance there. Now, as I was saying, there's a lot of different reasons. One of the main reasons is the fact that they have such bigger home ranges rather than territories, is they have a very interesting breeding regime, which is completely different from any of the other big cats. So cheetahs are the only big cat that need a male dominant sexual ratio, so they need to be more males than females, and female cheetah often will have to pass up 2 or 3 male coalitions before they're actually ready to mate. So it's quite interesting. So they do cover much bigger areas. Now, the only time cheetahs become quite sedimentary, or females in particular, is when they do have cubs. Well, here we go. It seems like a few of you out there have compared cheetah to ballerinas. Yes, they are incredibly graceful and elegant creatures. Now, I'm going to sit with the beautiful Amani twins and wait for them to get up on the move again. While we do that, let's jump to the western bank of the Mara River to Jamie and some Ellies.
Well, in this particular case, I have some topi underneath the rainbow, but I've got elephants as well. And, funnily enough, we're also looking for cheetah, which is, well, unexpected in this particular area, but perhaps these elephants will help us find her. We spoke before about elephants bullying other animals. Not quite bullying, really, but elephants don't like predators, and they'll often chase them away from the area that they're in. Oh, that is a magnificent female. Can you believe that is a female elephant with those enormous tusks of hers? Wandering through into the golden sunlight. I know we're looking at Ellie's. Okay, they've stopped. I was about to say we're looking at elephants, but the topi are staring intently in one direction, but now they're all looking off in different ways, so that's okay. It's amazing how many more elephants we're seeing already now that the wildebeest have gone. King Bling, you say so much going on, animals absolutely everywhere. I completely agree. We've seen elephant, I saw an eland. Is it still visible? No, unfortunately not. It's behind us. There are lots of zebra, even though the wildebeest have departed from this particular part of the triangle. There's still lots and lots and lots of zebra around. And if we have a look a little bit towards the escarpment as well, you can see the zebra there in front. And then, oh, is that going to make life difficult, Manu? Nope, there we go. There's some zebra around there, perhaps being watched by a patient cheetah. And then if we go up and to the right a little bit, it looks as though there's a herd of buffalo there as well. Where are they? Am I going crazy? No, there they are. There they are. There's some buffalo up there as well. So this place truly is teeming with animals, even when the migration isn't right on our doorstep. Although most of the wildebeest are across the river, there's plenty to look at still. And the fact that there is a cheetah lurking somewhere, apparently it was seen. If we have a look at that clump of, well, actually the elephants are walking straight towards that clump of trees. And that is where it was apparently seen. Now there's a lot of zebra there at the moment, so I think it's unlikely it's still there. I didn't quite hear the name, and I do apologize for that, but we have a lovely question coming through. And of course, I spoke completely... Sue Mance? Sue Mance? Am I getting that right? Sorry, Alice. Oh, I am getting that right. I am getting that right. I spoke about the fact that elephants are left and right tusks, but I neglected to actually mention what elephants use their tusks for. So elephants use their tusks for a number of different things. One is digging in the ground to pull up things like tubers, and they'll usually use them in conjunction with their feet, with the hard soles of their heels. They'll scrape at the bottom of they'll scrape the bottom of their foot on the ground and dig things up, using their amazing sense of smell to tell them where to dig. They'll use them to break branches. They'll use them to, especially in the case of the South African elephants, to dig into the bark of trees and then strip away the bark, which is where, of course, the tree's nutrients are passed up, water passed up, and nutrients passed down from the leaves to the root systems. And then, of course, they use them for the same thing antelope use their horns for. So defense and for competition. In the case of the females, defense, including intimidation, because that counts as a defense mechanism as well. And then for the male elephants, they will also use them when they fight each other, often breaking off their tusks in the process. So a tusk is a modified tooth. That's all that it is. Well, not all that it is, but that's essentially what it is. That grows out from the jaw, through the lip, and on either side of the trunk. And then behind that they've got 4 molars, each one on the top, or 2 on the top on each side, and 2 on the bottom, 1 on each side.